literature. Literature grew from the time of Plato in 4th century BC. The criticism started. Why should the criticism start at all? Why should be there a criticism at all? Why should a theory or criticism be followed by a theory? These are all experiences, according to me. And very shortly, we will be speaking about pre-corona COVID-19 and post-corona or COVID-19 literature. Now, the literature is, flooding, getting flooded in our WhatsApp universities. In other literature also is being produced on this coronavirus, and that is how the literature starts. Take for example, World War. Take for example, colonialism. Take for example, any dreaded things that happened in the globe that gave rise to a particular set of literature. That is why we should feel happy that we are passing through a phase which, though frightens us, tomorrow it might show hold a ray of hope for us. Now, coming to a very important question that I am at hand. I am given 3 terms today to discuss with you. That is literature, criticism, and theories. Literature, criticism, and theories. Basic things I'm discussing because I'm not well versed in any of the theories. I know very less about these theories. I'm a student like you. But as I told you, as Dr. Vincent said, it's very important for us, if you are young scholars, if we are pursuing our PhD, MPhil, or PhD, it's very important for us to have the basic ideas of these theories. For example, when I was doing my research, first thing I told my research guide, please don't ask me to work on theories. My research guide looked at me and said, okay, and asked me one question: who is the guide here, me or you? Then he made me feel comfortable. Then he told me, look here, Vincent, I'm not going to tell you that you should refer to a particular theory, you should follow a particular theory, but at the back of mind, one day you will tell me, yes, sir, I read him, I read this man, I read this theoretician, I'm following this theory. This is what is happening when we are researching on a particular topic. Now, coming to the basic question that I have in my mind, literature. What is literature? It's a very basic question that I am asking you. Literature is, we may give different examples, definitions to literature. If I ask you now, I'm told that 500 scholars have registered. If I ask you 500 definitions, I'm sure to get on literature. But for me, literature is nothing but life. People say that something written on a printed page is literature. I'm not contesting that definition either. That is true. Something that is written, printed in a sheet of paper is literature. But what is printed there on that sheet of paper? That is very important, and that is very interesting. I think every piece of literature summarizes or holds life. Whose life? That is questionable. Somebody's life, somebody's feelings, some person's sorrows, some person's bitter or sweet experiences, and that is literature. And this literature, once or the other time, is being interpreted in so many ways. Interpretation is very important to understand literature. Now, what is interpretation? What is the role of literature? Role of literature is to make one understand one's life and nothing else, according to me. You understand yourself. If you want to understand yourself, you need to understand others. You need to understand the society. You need to understand the things that are disturbing you or those things which are supporting you. And this is what literature, the scope, and this is the task, basic task and duty and the function of literature. Now, coming to the criticism. Why this, most of the time, this word criticism is understood in a adverse way. We say we are not familiar, or we are not fond, we are not happy with the word criticism. We just push this word criticism to the negative side. It doesn't boost us. We think that somebody finds fault with something is a critic. This is criticism. But basically, criticism is not that. What is the role of criticism? The role of criticism is act of interpreting. There is a text. There is a text. And text has to be understood. As Dr. Vincent said, it could be understood in thousands of ways. Each one of us will understand a text in different way. And now, it has to be understood. And the role of criticism comes in here, that the role of criticism is to interpret, analyze, and make judgments of individual and comparative worth of works of art such as literature. Let me repeat, the role of criticism is to interpret, to analyze, and to make judgments of individual and comparative worth of works of art such as literature. And literary criticism is the interpretation, analysis, classification, and ultimately the judgment of literary works. It's very simple. It is analysis, interpretation, classification, and ultimately judgment of literary works. You take a book in your hand and start reading. At the back of your mind, several questions arise. How should I enter the text? What should I understand? Why is such thing is connected to certain things this way or that way? We analyze. And that is what is meant by everyone can be, or everyone should be a literary critic, because everyone takes a literary text to understand. And that is why if you are a critic, if you have a critical bent of mind, you will understand the work of literature better. So now, who is a critic now? We have understood literature. We have understood literary criticism. Now, there should be a critic for literary criticism to take the criticism. There should be a critic. And who is a critic? A critic can be anyone. A critic is not someone who merely evaluates the worth or quality of a piece of literature. Try to understand. A critic is not someone who merely evaluates the worth or quality of a piece of literature, but rather is someone who argues on behalf of an interpretation or understanding of the particular meaning or meanings of literary texts. He is not the one who just evaluates the worth of a piece of literature, but who argues for interpretation or understanding of the particular meaning of literary texts. He is called a critic. So, what is the task of a literary critic? The task of a literary critic is to explain. Now, we need to see, we have a text, and sometimes we don't understand a text. What do? We go back to the critics. We read the criticism. And through that line of thinking, we follow the text again. So what is the role of a critic? The role of a critic is to explain and attempt to reach a critical understanding. I repeat, the role of a critic is to explain and attempt to reach a critical understanding of what literary texts mean in terms of their aesthetic as well as social, political, and cultural statements and suggestions. So the critic has to explain to the reader, explain to someone who is following a text, the aestheticism in the text, the social context, the political context, and the cultural statements and suggestions prevalent in the text. A literary critic does more than simply discuss or evaluate the importance of a literary text. His role is more than that. A literary critic seeks to reach a logical and reasonable understanding of not only what a text's author intends for it to mean, but also what different cultures and ideologies render it capable of meaning. I repeat, a literary critic seeks to reach a logical and reasonable understanding of not only what a text's author intends for it to mean, but also what a different cultures and ideologies render it capable of meaning. When please unmute the audio, please unmute the audio. I cannot unmute because I'm getting disturbed in between. Somebody has kept the audio on. Dr. Chitra? Dr. Chitra? Dr. Christy? Dr. Christy?
Yes, sir, I'm calling you. Sometimes there is some problem.
I see, I'm getting disturbed with one of the audios there.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Shall I continue?
You continue, please. I'll talk to Christy.
So I was speaking to you about the role of a critic. The role of a critic is not just to evaluate the importance of a literary text. He's just, if he does so, he becomes a person who summarizes a text, right? So what is the role of a critic? The role of a critic is to evaluate. He has to make us understand. He has to make us understand beyond the understanding of the author. You try to understand this. I will be discussing about it a little later when I start discussing the theories. He has to help us to understand beyond the author's mind or author's understanding. And also, he has to connect us with the cultures, ideologies, which are connected to that particular text. So, I have spoke to you about literature. I spoke to you about literary criticism. Now, let us come to a very important concept that we are supposed to follow in this 7-day-long webinar, that is literary theories. Literary theory, rather. Literature we have, one body we have. Let me try to put it this way. We have a body. Text as a body. Now, interpretation. Interpretation is literary criticism. You evaluate the word. You look at a man and you want to understand that man. You have the tangible person, tangible thing, object in front of you. You want to understand it. You have the literature and you want to understand it. You have a book, you want to understand it. Understanding should be in terms which should be related to the ideologies. And you have the criticism for it to understand. Now, you require tools to understand a text. You will have to critically evaluate a text. But how are you going to evaluate a text? You use a certain tool to evaluate text. It is like an operation. A surgeon. See, there is a body, there is a surgeon, literary criticism. And now, what has to be done? You require to I mean, have an operate the person. And what are the tools used to operate the person? You need to understand, right? Understand that body. And the tools that are used to understand a text is nothing but literary theories. And now, coming to literary theories, a very basic way of thinking about literary theory is that these ideas act as different lenses. They act as different lenses critics use to view and talk about art, literature, and culture. Just try to understand this. Dr. Benison rightly said, if we are 100, if we are given a text, the same text, 100 of us will evaluate a text in different ways. No one, not the other one, not the other will understand the text same as I understand, because our minds are different. The way in which we evaluate a text is different. And that is what is meant by lens. Text is one, but the eyes, but the brain, the mind, which is trying to evaluate the text are different. And that is how we shall put it this way. Theories are the lenses through which we see a text. And we evaluate the text in a different way. So these are the lenses. These different lenses allow critics to consider works of art based on certain assumptions within that school of theory. No theory is similar to another. Dr. Benison named so many theories: formalism, neo-criticism, you have structuralism, post-structuralism, you have Marxism, so many modernism, feminism, so many isms you have, so many theories you have, and no theory will look into a text in the same way, because they have different frameworks, their own ideologies. They will look for what they want to look for in that particular text. So we should understand that literary theory is a lens through which we see a particular text. So modern literary criticism is often informed by literary theory, which is the philosophical discussion of its methods and goals. I repeat, modern literary criticism is often informed by literary theories. Literary theory plays a major role here to understand a text. So it is a philosophical discussion of its methods and goals. Now, from out of the blue, I used a term, philosophical discussion. Why did I bring this particular term, philosophical discussion, this concept? For example, you take a book, you take a novel, take up a novel, start turning the pages. And as you turn over the pages, you come across a character which is suppressed, a character belonging to the labor class. And there you find a master and a servant, master and a slave. The slave is being suppressed, or his, his freedom is taken away. Immediately, you think of Marxism. Marxism will help you to understand this text better. Now, another example I can give you. You take a text of, the colonial period. When we talk about colonial period, we immediately think of only Indian colonization. Many parts of African continent, parts of African continent also were colonized, and we need to have the broad idea of colonialism in this term. Take the works of colonialism. There, the persons, those who colonized, and the persons who were colonized, if you come across this particular discussion in text, immediately you go to the colonial or post-colonial discussion, post-colonial theories. And these are the lenses that we use to interpret a text. You need to understand these things. So literary theory proposes particular systematic approach to literary texts that impose a particular line of intellectual reasoning to it. I will repeat this sentence. I am reading it. Literary theory proposes particular systematic approach to literary texts that impose a particular line of intellectual reasoning.
Sir,
Literary
sorry
theory,
for interruption, please. Sorry for
yes,
interruption. Sir, would you please show PPT, please?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
okay.
have not prepared the PPTs. I have agreed to lecture, okay? I'm sorry, my friend. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. See, if you want, I can pass it on to Christy, madam, later on. See, this literary, I repeat this because this is very important. Literary theory imposes upon a reader in what way or what lens he is supposed to wear in order to interpret a particular text. Now, I've spoken to you about literature, criticism, and literary theories. Now, here one more comment I would like to make. Posing two terminologies together, literary criticism and literary theory. Literary criticism is the practice of interpreting and writing about literature. I repeat, literary criticism is the practice of interpreting and writing about literature, strives to make sense to the world. Literary theory is the study of the principles which inform how critics make sense of literary works. So these things we will have to keep in mind. Now, after discussing these things, let us put all these three words together. That is literary critical theory. All the three words together, literary critical theory. Now, if you put all these three words together, literary critical theory, it's a tool that helps you find meanings in the work of literature. It's a tool. It helps you to understand the work of literature better. Literary critical theory is a tool that helps you finding meaning in stories, in poems, in plays, in novels, or whatever piece of literature that you read. Now, we should read literature keeping these things in mind. That is, and when you read literature, you tend to come across these things in that particular piece of literature. And you follow this, the human condition. I'm not saying that in every piece of literature you will find it. But as you go on reading with the critical evaluation, with literary criticism, applying some theories, you will come across the human condition, experience of loss and death, the structure of power in society, and how it is implemented. Now I am bringing you closer to the theory that we will be applying to understand different work of literature. See, we will come across the human condition. We will come across the experience of loss and death. You come across the structure of power in society and how it is implemented. You come across the psychology of characters and individuals in general, the sociology, the history of cultures that produce specific pieces of literature. All these are represented by different theories, which I'm going to discuss in a nutshell later. So, literary theory helps us to discover the things that I just now listed above. Now, when you read a book or a piece of literature, for a critical evaluation, how we need to enter a particular text. There are certain steps that may not be, I'm not saying that they are too important for us, but if we have the basic, if at all we have to climb high, we will have to keep our steps on every runs. So to understand a text, we need to focus on okay, for example, you take a book in your hand. Now what we will have to do it first. Without looking at the title, nobody proceeds. The title becomes very important for us. So we look at the title and we connect immediately. See how does our subconscious work now? We take a text, we take a book and look at the title. Immediately, without going into the pages, going through the pages of a text, one picture comes to our mind. Some thoughts come to our mind. For example, if you take Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, immediately, without, you don't have any idea of Charles Dickens, any knowledge of Charles Dickens, you do not have any idea of who Oliver Twist is, but you come to know, you understand that this particular text should be on that particular character, Oliver Twist. So how does that particular title gets connected to that story? And does it symbolize events or people in that story? This is one. Secondly, you concentrate on narration. After concentrating on the title, you concentrate on narration. This is all the critical interpretation, critical evaluation. Literary, it helps you to get into the literary criticism. Then you concentrate on narration. Who is telling the story? That picks up importance here. How does the narrator approach the topic? What is the relationship between the narrator and something that is narrated? Then comes the subject matter. What is the subject matter? What is the situation? What is the basic situation? And so on. Then, very importantly, sometimes we may miss it, but subconsciously that plays in our mind. The mood of the text also, mood of the situation, mood in the story also plays a very important role for us to understand that particular text, the emotional background. How is the mood expressed in the language? How is the language made use of to explain or express the mood? Then comes a very important phase in reading a novel, critically evaluating a novel, is or any piece of work, story for that matter, or play, are the characters. How are the characters placed? How powerful the characters are? How vehemently they put forward their thoughts? Is that what they desire in the novel, in a work of art? How does the main character change? Everything matters. And the interaction between different characters. And at the end, plot. So these are the common elements that we will have to concentrate on when we try to critically evaluate a text. Now, coming to theories, this is a very important phase of my lecture. Before getting into the different approaches to critical theories, let me ask this question to you all, and in the meantime, I'm asking this question to myself. We have different approaches to literary criticism. Now, first basic question, which I'm not going to answer now, or maybe I may not answer at all, because that has remained a question throughout in me. Are theories important to understand a piece of work, understand literature? Now, let me speak about different approaches before I go to different theories. The approach, one is the formalistic approach. What is formalistic approach? We call formalism. What is formalistic approach? Formalistic approach is what the work means and how it conveys its meaning in relation of theme to style. Good work is one that is interesting because it conveys meaning in an interesting way, an intriguing way to say the same old thing, as Alexander Pope said. You know, you have a same thing, you have a same old thing, and you are telling it in a very interesting way. Maybe the thing that you know already, but the way it is explained is very much interesting. And that is a formalist approach to literature. Now, another approach, I have listed nearly 9 approaches to literature. One is formalist approach to telling the old thing in an interesting manner. That is the formalist approach. And it has a theme, its own style. Then another approach is the humanist or ethical approach. The effect the work has on the audience. This particular approach is very much followed by many readers, because this is an easier approach to literature. That's what I feel, the humanist approach, because when we read literature, when we read a piece of work of art, work of literature, sometimes unknowingly we relate ourselves with the character or with the situation. So humanistic approach is this, or ethical approach is this: the effect the work has on the audience and reader. The larger function of literature, according to this approach, the larger function of this literature is to teach morality and to probe philosophical issues. Literature should instruct and delight. You know, I think critical literary criticism started, all of us agree, in 4th century BC. Plato, a great student of Socrates, he expounded this particular theory that every work of art should be loaded with moral values. They should produce moral values. They should be loaded with ethics, and they should teach. Work of literature should teach morality. That's what he was saying. He was advocating, and of course, his student Aristotle differed with him. And now, humanist approach is that the larger function of this approach of literature is to teach morality and to probe philosophical issues. Literature should instruct and delight. Now, third approach, the historical approach, the relationship of the work to history. I spoke to you about the World War, the colonialism, war for independence, or different historical events that have taken place and the literature produced on such events. So historical approach is the relationship of the work to literature, to history. The impact of the work on history and the importance of historical knowledge in understanding a work. So how history and literature inform and affect each other. So understanding this, if at all we try to understand this aspect, the relationship between history and literature, it is called historical approach. And very interesting approach, another approach is the biographical approach. And what do we do? How the literature is being taught to us if we are students, or we are teachers. How do we teach? How do we introduce a piece of work, a book, to our students? We immediately, before talking about the text, we start speaking about the author. We draw the attention of the students to the biography, the autobiography of the producer of that piece of work. And this is a biographical approach. As we proceed, we start speaking about the relationship of the author and the text. For example, if we take up the poem of Wordsworth, Tinton Abbey, or any of Wordsworth poems for that matter, Tinton Abbey, we immediately, yes, this is the life of Wordsworth. And Wordsworth, was in his childhood, he spent his days there and so on and so forth. This is a biographical approach. And some theories, these are the approaches of different theoreticians or isms, okay? Now, there is another approach. Till now, I have listed one formalist approach, humanist approach, historical approach, and a biographical approach. Now, the fifth approach to literature is the psychological approach. What the work tells us about the human mind. Literature as a tool of psychoanalysis. We make use of. What does literature speak about the mind, human mind? This is the psychological approach. And the work of literature, or the literature, is a tool of psychoanalysis. The psyche is analyzed by literature. The way the mind works. This is to finding out this in a particular text is through psychological approach. Next is the mythic approach. We have the universal patterns of human behavior and thinking as conveyed in literature. We have mythical characters, and we follow those characters, and following these characters is called mythical approach. The next one is the textual approach. What is the actual text? How does it change? Impact on translation, oral tradition, changes in the text, substantive or accidental, and so on and so forth. You have the text and you understand the text as it is. Author is not important. Anything that is, ideologies are not important. The social structure is not important. Anything that happens outside is not important. That is the textual approach. The other one is linguistic approach, and structuralists, post-structuralists dwell upon it. What the text tells us about the language of the time of the work, the linguistic approach. And the last one I have listed here is the subjective or the personal approach. That is, reader response theory, reader-based criticism. Reader is important here, not anything else. The effect that the differences of readers has on reading a common text. Just now, before I could discuss this, I started saying that hundreds of us, if we read a particular text, we will understand it in 100 ways. Okay, so this is the subjective or personal approach. I'm going to just read out the 9 approaches that I listed now. One is formalist approach. Second one is the humanist approach. Third one is the historical approach. Fourth one is the biographical approach. Fifth one is the psychological approach. And sixth one is the mythic approach. Seventh one is the textual approach. Eighth one is the linguistic approach. And ninth one is the personal or the subjective approach. So after this, I am getting on to a discussion of my final point here. That is application of different theories. As our topic of the 7-day seminar goes, the literary isms for young scholars. Now, before getting into this discussion, I'd like to ask the same question which I raised before I was speaking, dwelling upon the approaches of literary theories, different literary approaches to literary criticism. Now, are theories important? We have a text. We have an independent text to understand. Text is produced or text is formed in the mind of a particular reader. Now, I want to understand a text. Maybe I'm repeating some of the ideas here. I want to understand the text. And what should be my approach? Now, the theoreticians like Foucault or Edward Said or F.R. Lewis or anybody for that matter, they will not ask us to read a particular text in a particular way. It is our freedom. It is the freedom of individual. It is the reader is the boss here to decide in what, through what approach he has to get into, enter a particular text. So, as Dr. Benison said, theories are frightening. Theories overnight they come and they are frightening. Now, what theories we will have to make use of to understand a particular text? Nobody says if you take the works of Indian authors of those post-colonial or colonial period or the pre-colonial period, nobody would ask you to use the colonial theory to understand the text. Nobody would ask you to make use of the Marxism to understand text written by the period of that particular time. But why we should use these theories? As I told you, what is the function of theories? The function of theories is to make us understand in a different light, which I can call it an enlightenment. You read a text once, and once again you want to read it, but the way you understand the text the second time will never be the same as you understood it for the for the first time. The way you understand the text the second time would be slightly or largely or entirely different from you have understood it for the first time. That is because the influences that we have, the readings that we have, the line of readings that we do, the ideologies that transform our mind also comes to picture here to make us understand this text in a different way. And that is why, that is where the theories help us to understand a particular text in a different way. A particular text, same person can try to understand in different ways. You take one theory and start reading the text in the line of that particular theory, you will understand you take structuralism, you will understand in one way, one way. You take, another theory. If at all you are reading Russian fiction, take Marxism. You read the 19th century novels. You take, you will definitely your mind will carried by the Industrial Revolution. So that is how your mind is framed to understand the text in a different ways. Now, after speaking about these things, after posing an important question to you, now I'm not going to discuss the isms, literary criticisms or isms in detail for two reasons. One, I am not well versed in, I'm not dead or still I have not understood any theory to the fullest. Secondly, for the want of time, I'm not going to discuss because my job is to introduce you to literary criticism. Now, literary, there are, I'm going to list the 5 literary theories which will help us to understand the text. There are so many, which I am not going to elaborate. One, formalism, or which is also called new criticism. Secondly, we have reader response theory. Thirdly, we have psychoanalytical theory. Fourth, new historicism analysis. And fifth, post-colonial theory. You have here and there, you have Marxism, you have structuralism, you have post-structuralism, modernism, or feminism. So many theories we have, but I'm going to concentrate on these particular theories. First, let me dwell upon, I already spoke to you, the approach, formalist approach, I spoke to you, and now formalism or new criticism. What is the role of formalism or new criticism in literary criticism? This particular theory or criticism approaches the text, each piece of literature that possesses all of its meaning inside the text. I repeat, because this is very important too. If you want to understand formalism, if you want to approach a text through a vehicle of a formalistic theory, you need to understand that formalism focuses on the meaning inside the text. Meaning does not exist for the formalists or for the new criticism. Meaning does not exist beyond the text. Meaning exists inside the text. In other words, the history behind the text or its author's biography do not contribute to the text's theme or content. This is very clear and very easily it could be understood. Okay, the history behind the text or author's biography doesn't help us contribute to understand the theme or the content of the text. So if you want to understand the text itself is ultimate. Don't look beyond the text. This is the formalistic approach of understanding a particular text. To analyze literature through formalism, one will focus on style, structure, tone, and imagery. You will analyze how certain elements work together to create meaning within the text. Very simple. I'm not going to stretch it far. If you want to understand the text, you making use of the formalism, or if you want to have a formalistic approach, you fix your eyes and mind inside the text. Don't go to understand something beyond the text. Don't go to understand the history. Don't go to understand the author at all. You understand the language, you understand the style, and you understand the tone, you understand the structure, you understand the imagery, and you have understood the text according to the formalism. Now,
Sir, interruption, please.
Yes.
Sir, I. Richard's practical criticism is different from formalist approach or new criticism, or is it the same?
I will come back to that, please. Will you? We can discuss it, because if I don't have an answer, I think my fellow friends will help me. Shall I complete this and come back to your question,
sir.
please? Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, a second theory that I mentioned now is reader response theory. For me, I always I have in my readings or in my academic career, while reading, I have given importance to this particular theory, that is reader response criticism. And the meaning of this particular term is there, in the words itself, reader response criticism. Here, reader is very important, not the author or not anything. So this approach views literature not as an object like formalism does, but as a dynamic interaction between the text and a reader. The text and a reader. and only two, nothing else. The interpretation by the reader of the text. This theory holds that there are many different ways to interpret the text based on the reader's cultural, religious, economic, etc. background. I already told you, I already discussed about it. A text can be understood in different ways. If most of you, I believe you are from Tamil Nadu. I am from Karnataka. If we select a text, both of us will read, or all of us will read the same text, but the way I understood and understand will be different from you understand that text, because we are from different backgrounds. Our social, cultural, religious, economic backgrounds are different. That is how reader response theory comes to our help to understand this particular, particular text through this particular theory, that is reader's response theory. Next one is that I have listed is psychoanalytical theory. And psychoanalytical theory, we might have heard about Sigmund Freud. Based on the theories of Freud, this criticism centers on the psychology of the characters and analyzes the characters' motivation, behavior, and actions. So this theory gives more importance to the psychoanalysis. It gives importance, this criticism centers on the psychology of the characters. You try to understand the mind of characters. You try to understand the behavior of a particular character, with different reasons why he behaves like this in a particular piece of work or particular novel, why he why he behaves like this. This is how, if you start analyzing the mind, it becomes the psychoanalytical criticism. And the next is the new historicism criticism. This takes the history of that particular period. You research the historical time period and discuss the work within its historical context. If text is of, written during the World War, or the Green Revolution, or the Industrial Revolution, or the War for Independence, what we do is we go to the history and read the history, try to understand the history, and come to the text and try to understand through this particular approach, through historical criticism. This theory looks at the cultural makeup of a certain era and the ideas and the values of that particular era. The text serves as a retelling of history. There is a very close connection between history and the text here, because it can be a historical version, literary historical version of that particular time. That literature can also serve as literature. So the text serves as a retelling of history, and if viewed as a historical document, can supply a radically different viewpoint than what is commonly known about an event, era, or person. New historicism also provides cultural and historical critique, as well as helping the reader to new meanings in a text. Now, the last theory that I have mentioned, and I'm going to speak to you, is the post-colonial criticism. And this theory, I think we are familiar with this particular theory. Now, using this critical method, that is post-colonial approach, the reader will analyze the issues that are caused by centuries of colonialism, like England's economic role in India and Africa in the 18th or 19th century, This theory includes the dynamics of racism and third world politics. If we apply this theory to a particular book called The Things They Carried, we would research Vietnam as a former colony of France and why the United States as a powerful and wealthy country became involved in a civil war there. So this particular approach, post-colonial criticism, will give importance to, once again, the colonial style of ruling, or the economic or the social or the cultural values which permeated or which influenced the work of art. So friends, I have listed these 5 theories to you and discussed these 5 theories with you. That is formalism, reader response theory, psychoanalytical theory, new criticism analysis, new historicism analysis, and post-colonial theory. Other than this, there are umpteen theories. We have Orientalism, we have structuralism, post-structuralism, feminism, and modernism, postmodernism. We can go on and on and on. But I think for the time being, this introduction is sufficient. I do not know how much light I have thrown upon, or how much I have been successful in introducing the literary concepts, theories, literary isms. One thing for sure, which I understand and which I believe, we need to start from somewhere. If you don't start, yes.
Sir, you have made everything very much clear in very simple words. This is very much easier to us.
Yes, I will. I'll come back to you. I'll finish and come back to you. Thank you for the compliment.
Excuse me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me. Excuse me. This is Vincent. We are already getting time to close. So I humbly request our friends not to talk now. We shall have a discussion after Dr. Vincent Alva has finished talking. Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benison. I've already finished. I wanted to make a very, I don't know, it's a very important, or for me, it's an important point, that we need to start from somewhere. These theories, these isms really frighten us. For example, when I was doing my research, my guide later on asked me to read Edward Said. And Edward Said is one person whom I hated a lot. Because hated a lot for the simple reason that I didn't understand him, that's it. I failed to understand it. But then, because my guide forced me to read Orientalism, now my approach to any text is something different. The way Edward Said discusses Orientalism, the way Edward Said analyzes the minds of the Occidents towards the Orients here, that has influenced me a lot. And if at all I'm speaking of criticism now, I will always have Edward Said at the back of my mind, though I don't use him. Any discussion that I make ends with Orientalism now. It is because he has made very clear the way the West is evaluating the East, and the East remains them exotic or something dark, something that they don't understand. But it is we who make the West understand the East better than East make us understand. West make the East understand, understandable to us. So, dear friends, thank you very much. And we are trying to say, swim in a big ocean. We have to swim. Literary theory is such. So, thanking you all for giving me an opportunity. I do not know how much justice I have made to this topic. Frankly speaking, when Benison asked me and when Christy, Paulina asked me to speak on this, I was a little hesitant. Then I saw the topic, young research scholars. Then I thought, okay, I should give a try. And thanks for selecting me giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I don't know how much you have understood me. If at all there are some fallacies, please forgive me. And the questions that you ask shouldn't be only to me. All of us should help each other to answer the, because I may not. One of my friends, they asked me a question on I.A. Richards. I'm sorry, now itself, let me tell you, I'm not. I have
Okay, sir.
not read I.A. Richards.
I'm ready
much
to ask the
about it.
question.
Yes,
I'm ready
yes,
to ask the question.
Yes. Now, Benison, please.
I. Richards' practical criticism is different or not different from formalism or new criticism? My question is this.
According to me, it is different. I.A. Richards' practical criticism is different from formalism. That's what I understand. I'm sorry if I am wrong. Anybody can help me with this. What do you think, sir? What do you think?
Actually, sir, my sir told me in the classroom that that is a textual criticism.
Mr. Rajan, yes. Can you open your video, please, so that everyone can see that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sir. Okay, if you permit me. Sir, I am visible?
Yes, yes, of course.
Sir, actually, my professor told me that that was the practical done by I. Richards in the classroom, that he distributed some papers of poems to be interpreted by them.
Okay.
So he finally said that this is nothing but textual criticism. There is nothing outside the text.
Okay.
So sir, I'm confused that you are telling practical criticism and
But
formal.
the approach would be, I don't know. I will have to study it. Thank you for giving me.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more question, please. Today the session is very much important for me.
Thank you.
Reader response theory, you have interpreted very well, but there is a question. Supposing that in the classroom we give a passage or extract of a poem to be interpreted by various students, and they interpreted that in a various way. Is this applicable to reader response theory or not?
It is. Allow them to read as they want, because they have.
Professor, sir, sorry.
Yes.
Professor S.K. Chauhan from the Alva University, Agra, he said that reader response theory is not applicable to a particular extract, of a poem. This applicable only to the whole text.
See, my friend, there will be a theme, right? There will be a theme for a poem, right?
Okay.
And that theme will be same. You can't change the theme, right? But the interpretation differs. Interpretation changes. And this is reader's responsibility.
Okay, I got it, sir. I got it.
Yes.
Sir,
thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Ma'am, please. Hello, sir.
Hello.
One more question. Linguistic approach, I couldn't listen to you.
Everybody, please, one at a time.
Linguistic approach. Just show a light.
Linguistic approach. Just a
gentleman, Dr. Rajan Lal, Professor Dr. Rajan Lal. Right, we are getting time. Just
sir, very important, very nice session.
Very, very, very useful, I believe. But at the same time, we need to listen to the other questions also. And we are already getting late, okay?
Rajan, I didn't speak much about the linguistic approach. I just told that language of the time of the work. Okay?
Yes, Dr. Paul Mishra, wait a minute.
Thank you.
Now it's time to listen to Dr. Parul Mishra.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, you are not visible.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yeah, it is audible. We want to see you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Hello. I have one question regarding reader response theory.
Excuse me. Everybody, please, if you have a question, please raise your hand. So I would ask you to unmute, because it's a commotion over here.
Now we will listen to Monica Rao.
Yes, sir. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Monica, ma'am,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you, but
sir,
we are not able to see you.
Sir, very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir?
Switch on your video, please.
Hello.
Switch on to your video so that we can see you.
Hello.
Yeah, I can. We
sir,
can
I have
hear
a
you.
question to ask.
Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Very well.
Okay. Can you switch on the video, please?
Okay.
Continue asking question, no problem.
Sir, first of all, thank you so much. It was such a wonderful session.
Thank you.
And so my question is,
Yeah.
can a text has more than one theory in a text?
It's possible. That's what I was trying to tell you. It's possible. See, a text is not written for a theory. Text is not written for a particular theory.
Okay, sir.
The theories are there for textual interpretations.
Yes, sir.
You understood?
Correct.
Yes?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yes, next. Benison?
Yeah, now it's time for Mr. Bidisha Biswas to ask the question. I think we can have only one more question to go with, and after that we will wind up. Now, Dr. Parul Mishra wants to ask.
No, I don't want to ask questions. No, I didn't question, sir.
Right.
I'm satisfied. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
You are angry on me?
No, not at all, sir. Why would I be? It was
Hello,
wonderful
sir.
presentation,
Yes,
sir.
please.
Wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yes,
sir.
please.
Yes.
Actually, reader response theory that you have explained,
Yes.
I know that Ronald Barthes once
Yes.
said that reader is very important.
Very
Where is
important.
the birth of the reader and death of the author?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in this respect, I think that the reader's perspective is very important.
Yes, you are right. You are absolutely right.
And the another person told you that whether it is okay or not, that it must be based on reader or not. But I think that it must be, the analysis must be based on the reader and
You are
his
right.
perspective, and that perspective must be different readers, different perspective.
That's what I was trying to tell you, madam.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to explain. Thanks
Yes.
for highlighting it once again.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you,
so
sir.
for interaction, please switch on your video also.
Yeah.
So no question. Shall we wind up?
Yes,
Sir, one more question, please.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
Mr. Rajan.
Sir,
Rajan.
reader response theory leads to deconstruction.
Yes, it should.
No.
Thank you. No? Who is saying no?
Not me.
No, sir, you are not saying. You are not saying. Some participant is saying.
The way you are asking, you must be a very strict teacher.
No, sir. Sorry, sir.
Okay.
But sir, you are right, and my opinion is also the same. Reader response theory leads to deconstruction.
Okay. Yes.
Sir, really very wonderful, very vibrant.
Otherwise, my friend, there is no fun in reading something. Even if you don't follow the deconstructionism, you need to deconstruct a text to understand it any way you want. Apply any theory you want. Don't get influenced by a certain orientation to read a text. You deconstruct it, then get into the text, and you will get a wonderful vision. I mean, you made use of the word enlightenment, and that's what it should be. Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very insightful, very knowledgeable, very informative, and vibrant session I have today.
Dr. Rajan, you didn't introduce yourself. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sir. Myself, Dr. Rajan Lal, Assistant Professor of English in JS Hindu PG College, Amroha, UP.
Oh,
Amroha,
very
UP.
good. Very good. See how we get
very
connected.
Close to Delhi. Very close to Delhi.
Is it thanks to COVID? Because we got connected.
Yes. But sir,
Okay,
really, sir, today we have interested a lot.
Okay, my friends, this is Dr. Vincent Alva, who has been enlightening us from his point of view what literary criticism is all about, and this is actually the principle of a college. in the midst
I'm sitting
of
in my office.
Milgraes College. It's in Karnataka, right? In the midst of his heavy schedule, he has been with us and he has been talking to us. A beautiful saying, a well begun is half done. So friends, you can understand that we have got a very good beginning with Vincent Alva. So 6 more days.
Sir, would you please, what will be the theme of tomorrow? So we should prepare.
You're preparing to ask questions?
Yes, sir.
Because
criticism is an ocean.
Of course, of course, of course. You listen to the speaker first.
Okay.
You listen to the speaker first, and then let us think about asking the questions.
Okay, sir.
I really appreciate you for the thirst that you have to read a little bit of information well in advance, but at the same time, let's listen to the speaker's point of view also, and from that you have questions. So, my friends, 91 participants are here with us in this good afternoon, and many more are there who have joined in the live stream through YouTube. So we would like to thank each and everyone here. Thank you very much. Come and join us in the tomorrow's program also. Come, but when you come, please take some notes.
Yes, sir.
The research, the scholars, I'm sorry, the speakers do not come and give an extempore speech. So when you come with a piece of paper and a pen in your hand. That will really help you in many ways. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. Very special thanks to Dr. Christy, Paulina. You can see her there with all full smiles. Thank you, coordinator. Thank you very much, Dr. Christy. Okay, bye-bye. See you.
Thank you, Vincent.
I would also say a word to Dr. Vincent, sir. You know, sir, in YouTube, I have been seeing a lot of comments. You will be having a fan club soon, I think.
Oh my God.
People, you know, yeah, they're asking your email IDs. You know, I was thinking, sir would be having a fan club. Your session was awesome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And you should operate that fan club.
Yes, sir. Really.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, Vincent.
Bye.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Dr. Christy, do you have any instruction to give?
Yes, sir. I request all the participants to please complete your feedback form as well as your assessment. Because for all the 7 days, only if you do all these two, you'll be getting your certificates at the end of the 7-day program. So please do complete your assessment. And you will not be getting a certificate today. Many were asking me. So you would be getting your certificates at the end of the FTP program, 7-day program. So if anybody have not got your feedback, please message us through chat. I hope everyone got it. I just pasted it.
Dr. Christy, can you post it again in the chat box, please?
Yes.
For a few, those who have joined late, and for a few, those who went out and come back will be benefited.
Your feedback form is the one I sent earlier. Sir has come now. So tomorrow, everybody, please be here by 11:30. Sharp as day.
So, shall we go on?
Yes, sir. You can. I'll see to them. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Take off.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
ఏండి
Christy ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you let us know the theme for tomorrow, please?
Tomorrow is presentism.
Presentation.
Presentism. Presentism.
Presentism. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Angel ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not able to get that assessment form.
Is it?
Feedback I've got.
I'll send it again.
Okay.
Have you got now? Angel ma'am, did you get it now, ma'am?
Christy, I've got it.
Thank you.